must also add that it's very inspiring to see that the ways he has responded, and this is a living example of how to live from within outwards. Because normally we all react on the surface and rush at every knock of things from outside. We go around the world stumbling, fumbling, pushed by all kinds of forces. We speak without stepping back, without a thought. We live and breathe so mechanically, caught up in the wheel of circumstance, driven by the whiplash of desire, carried by the compass of ego, at the mercy of every surface event. This is called living outward, and we are very familiar with it, all of us. But there is another way to live, and it's a lot more conscious way, a way which actually eventually leads even to a mastery not only of our own nature but also our circumstances. Very often when we think of living from within outwards, we think it's a certain attitude which helps us to face life. Yes, no doubt about it. It helps us to face life, go through it without too many perturbations, fluctuations. Some will come, but they will pass through the surface. But there is another aspect of it, and that is a mastery, conscious mastery over circumstances. It can extend to any extent. To take two examples, one more mundane and the other, of course, divine. First, the divine example. Mother describes an event which took place in the ashram context when a terrible storm was raging. Many of us have heard this, but it's a good reminder, and some probably may not have heard this. Terrible storm was raging outside, and the mother went to Sri Aurobindo's room that because of the storm, things may be flying, what may be happening. She went to shut the windows, and what met her eyes was something very amazing, amazingly powerful. The windows were open, the storm was raging. Sri Aurobindo was sitting on his chair and writing on the table. Not a drop of water is entering inside. What mastery is that, where even an outer event, circumstance is as if kept at bay. In her own life, mother recounts number of such instances. Once when she is about to step out of the car, and suddenly she stops, something stops her. We do these acts very mechanically. The other day I think someone spoke about, Partha was mentioning why there are accidents. It was very good. I thought, that was really a wonderful question. Why there are accidents? Unconsciousness. Something stops her. And then she looks carefully. And there is this beautiful danger in the form of a snake right there. Normally she would have stepped over the snake, and that would have been a different story. Not end of the story certainly, but a very different story. She stopped. A lot of us have these examples in exceptional moments of exceptional protection and grace. But these happens in Mother and Sri Aurobindo, it's a different story altogether, but at a mundane level, we all experience things like that. And it happens mainly as an intervention of grace. We were unconscious, but someone was conscious. And that someone holds us, as it were, prevents an inevitable tragedy, crash of circumstance. But there is a way that we can be more conscious, and it has the power to change circumstances. Let's take another mundane example. The mother says, you are going in a car. Actually, this happened with someone who died in a crash, and the mother says, you are going in a car and suddenly you see from front a vehicle which is coming, and sometimes you get a feeling that this is going to crash into each other. What is the normal response we make as human beings? And she says we end up with the crash. We project ourselves outward. And by projecting outward, we entangle ourselves in the net of play of forces which are going on outside. There is a whole different levels at which the net of forces are working. And there is the most outward net of forces. All kinds of forces, beings behind it. She speaks about it at length. So many places, particularly in Savitri. Beings who like to create accidents. Who put like a bandage over the eyes. People suddenly go off to sleep or they fail to see and they wonder what happened. And they love it because that's their task, that's their joy. For them, this is soap opera, nothing else. And she says at that moment, if you just step back, instead of ma, this gesture, she says, either there will be no tragedy is averted, or at the nick of moment, it just grazes and passes by, and perhaps something very minor takes place, what could have been very major. I am sure all of us have experienced this. I have, number of times, plenty number of times, this kind of events. Once, even as a child, youngsters, just one of them, where how these things happen. As a 20 or 19-year-old, and I didn't know about yoga. I had not turned to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. But see how the divine is behind us. I enter into a train compartment as the compartment opens, and I am the first one to enter. Suddenly my feet get arrested, literally arrested. At that moment I don't realize what, when, and others go past me. And within a moment there is a hue and cry and everything. And nobody knows what happened. So after a while I also start walking. And I see that there was actually a robber sitting inside with a dagger waiting for the first person to come in. Which logically, technically should have been me. And he stabbed whoever was the first person, snatched the bag and ran away. But when I look back, what really arrested the whole movement? So we don't realize that we are caught up all the time in a web, and this web drives us and weaves our fate, events, not only within but also outside. A simple thing like eating food. Many of us eat in a hurry, and sometimes checking our emails. I was doing that today. Sergey just put the computer. But in general, it's not a good thing to do. Because when we are eating in a hurry, the entire process is very, very mechanical. Or if we are watching a serial, it's a purely, we are eating all that is going on. In Sanskrit, there is a very interesting word for food, and it is called ahara. And ahara is not only food, but everything you take within. So, If we are eating, we are not only eating food, but having all the discussions that we are having, we are also eating. It's also food. Once Vijay Bhai was telling me this very interesting story about his father. He said, "Mother, I am able to remember you for most of the moments, but when I eat, I forget. What do I do?" And mother asked him, "Do you sit with others and eat?" "Yes, mother." "No, you eat alone." And from that day onwards, he started eating alone. We have now so many pills for digestion, first we create diseases, then we rush to doctors. But this simple act of eating alone, if possible, it may not be possible in every circumstance, but at least in quietude, even if we are engaged in talking. Nowadays, of course, the culture of luncheon meetings, because everybody is hard pressed for time, it's a back-to-back time, so let's grab a bite and sit together and eat. From the inner point of view, it is not healthy. Of course, there is a way of life which is, we are nobody to judge or comment upon it. But to eat and eat consciously, just one simple act, every day we are doing it. There is a very nice, with every sip, it's not that we are not talking, but even while speaking, every sip, I learned it in a very interesting way. I observed, normally when we eat, we offer. This is a beautiful thing. The whole idea is again to connect the act of eating to the divine. Offering is, we have been talking about it, and much of what we have spoken yesterday and the previous 2 days, last 3 days, all about living consciously from within outwards. But I'll tell you how things can still, there are things which we don't know. At least for me it was a revelation when I saw a person for whom I had high regard as a person with a rich inner life, and normally we would do pranam, sit and eat after offering, and he started eating. Now see my stupid mind, and it for a moment started judging. Oh, he is not offered the food. A lot of people may be doing it now with me because I have learnt that technique from him. So he could get the thoughts. He had this capacity to read thoughts. And many other such faculties he had. If you had a letter in front of him, he could know all the contents of the letter. And I have tested him that what's going on across the wall, and he'll tell you exactly. In fact, he used to tell that, it's better you don't read anything in front of me because I get to know, and it was too much of information overload for him. And a disciple of Mother and Shivinda. I'm not speaking of any other, because I don't have that kind of contact with anyone else. So he caught my thought, and he said, "You know what? You can offer the food with every morsel." I said, "This is something very nice." I never thought of it like that. I thought I've done my duty offering the food, and now I am eating and I am enjoying, and I am criticizing others and enjoying the rasa of somebody's ninda or praise and all the nonsensical little things, not sweet little things, but bitter little things which we take as caffeine into our system. But this was a different revelation to me, that every morsel can be offered. So very often I try it. Sometimes one succeeds, and it's not something which is visible on the surface. You can continue to eat. It's amazing that just like on a computer screen, we can open many windows. There are many levels at which we can coexist, and we do coexist. And part of becoming conscious is that at different levels, simultaneously we are aware, because this is one of the questions that people have in mind, that, if I am engaged in outer action, how do I remember and I forget? It is just a question of training and practice, nothing else. If we value the inner and make this inner life rich through an act of interiorization, offering, whatever means, through simply an aspiration, seeking, consecration, then his background state develops. It's like a luminous little something behind us. And there is a separation between what we are doing outwardly and what is going on inside. Amazing, both things together. One is speaking and one is conscious. One is conscious inside not only of the present but also of the whirlpool of forces that is going on. And this consciousness can go to any extent. I'm sure, I'm not speaking something new. I'm sure plenty of us experience this. But this is just that it's good to sometimes look at it and maybe try to deepen it more and more. In the ashram context, people used to go for exercise, and I'm sure a lot of people do here. And the other day we were having this talk. Somebody asked a question about, people do treadmill and they use the word cardio. I have done my cardio, treadmill. And what happens when we do it? We feel, I have given my heart an exercise. Very few people know that there are persons who have dropped dead while doing the treadmill. Treadmill is not really meant to clean up the heart vessels. It's a misconception. And on top of it, behind it, there is the fear. Oh my God, if I don't do it, there are people who, if they don't do one day, they feel fear. It's another thing that the body feels the need. That's a different thing altogether. I'm not speaking of that. Whereas this state of consciousness, which is full of fear, it itself creates problems. I know people who are doing everything right. And they've come, as a doctor, they've come and asked me. I am a pakka vegetarian. I don't drink, I don't smoke, no vices. I run every day. So much. Why did I get a heart attack at 60? So I caught him there. How much do you run? He said, well, about 2 hours. I said, that's it. That's the reason. You are not exercising. You are stressing your system. There is a difference between exercising and stressing the system. I'm still talking of very mundane something. Look how the inner consciousness, because when one is afraid, one has this natural tendency, it's like, people who make a wall to protect, build a wall around to protect against robbers. Then they become little more paranoid and they electrify the fence. Then they become little more paranoid, post a guard. Now, there is a limit. If you go beyond it, it becomes counterproductive. So, and there are ways and means things still come inside. In Nairobi, I had this first time I saw, because of the big divide between the rich and the poor. So those who are rich, they electrify the gates and all. So I asked, what if one day you forget to switch off and by mistake? Anyways, he told me that doesn't happen. I said, so these thieves, they must have devised some way to get past it. He said, yes. I said, what do they do? He said, nothing. They just throw a blanket over it and they scale. Throw a blanket over it. It's not a high voltage current. And they know how to get past. That's all they need to do. So, we get into complacency that we have done. But we have really not done what needs to be done. So very often when we do it, we get lax on many other issues which are more important. So it's like a false complacency. This is one part of it. So in ashram context, people used to do a lot of exercises when the playground came up and I'm building my body, I've done this. Even now, plenty. It's like because life has this it falls into mechanical routine. I'm going to the gym. Why? To shape up my body. It's come up. It's very unfortunate, but it's a fact. A lot of people now go to the gym to shape up their bodies. So the mother waiting that one day my children will grow up, become conscious. Finally somebody asked the mother, why do we do exercise? Look how long we take to understand. She says, I was waiting for someone to ask me. And then she gives a totally different sense to it. To build consciousness in the cells. Number one. Two, to awaken the physical consciousness. So very often when we don't do any kind of physical exercise or physical workout, in some way or the other, there is a whole range of it by which we can awaken the body consciousness. And we do things unconsciously, and one day when we fall sick, we suddenly call for grace, peace, nothing happens. So we end up blaming the divine. But Mother and Sri Aurobindo tell us that, look, in this play, there are two ends of the game and a whole lot of things in between. We cannot ignore. Divine doesn't play with marionettes. He's not like, it's not a puppet show, it's a real show. It's a real thing. So there is a part we have to do, there is a part divine will do, and there is a whole play. He has to act through it. He cannot just, with some people it does it. There were 3 persons in the ashram, one of them is still there, whom Mother has said that don't say anything to these people, because if you hurt them, it is like a direct blow on my own body. So this was a exceptional circumstance. And one of them had this privilege, who still is there, who has experienced things like roof collapsing and somebody picks him up and throws him against the wall so that he is saved. Now, this kind of an unconditional protection is a different thing. Some have it, like Arjuna had it. But by and large, there are two ends. If we have not awakened the physical consciousness, it is not receptive. Peace comes, grace comes, light comes, stops. Because everything is closed in a dense mass of unconsciousness. Now, if it pierces it, the body may shatter, because all through it has not remained open at all. Whereas those who do some kind of a physical culture, simple thing, the best exercise is walking, nothing to beat it. And recommendation, since we are at it, because this question should not be left unanswered, 45 minutes to 1 hour a day is max. Nothing more is needed. At the pace of about 4 miles in 1 hour. 4 kilometers, in 1 hour. If one does that, in fact they say even 5 days a week, it's fine. As far as the heart and other things are concerned. It's different that one wants to do more, one is used to more. It's perfectly valid. Partha is leaving, so our very best wishes, prayers. Thank you, Partha. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask a little bit more on this treadmill thing.
Yeah, I'll come.
I'm not quite at ease yet with your statement. Suppose that you don't do a lot of exercise, and you are told one should exercise somewhat each day. Walking, of course, granted, is the best. But if one uses a treadmill, not pushing oneself too far, too fast, and at the same time keeps invoking the mother, what do you feel then?
Okay, so first we'll split it into 2 parts. See, invoking the mother is a wonderful thing. There can be no doubt about it. Also, doing it within body's limits is a very good thing. But let's just understand how it works and what it does. What is the real reason many people do to make sure that heart remains in a good working condition? Now there are 2 things which are, the heart works through the muscles, and the muscles work because of the blood supply. Now these blood supply to the heart gets cut off for 3 main reasons. You'll see a lot of youngsters having a heart attack these days. So one reason, of course, is stress, type A personality. Life has become too much stressed out, and that is one straight reason. Treadmill has nothing to do with it. In fact, people may increase their stress. Oh, I must do treadmill if I don't do it. So this is one part of it. By, through this. Second is smoking. And, sometimes these vessels constrict rapidly. That is the second condition. It's called vasospastic angina. I must add, I am not a cardiologist. I am a psychiatrist. But nevertheless, read about all this and been talking about it, have a lot of friends. So, that is the second part. Again, treadmill is not going to do anything about it. The third is cholesterol, and lipids which are accumulating in the blood. Smoking also adds to it. Smoking makes the vessels rough and precipitates this whole process. Many other conditions. Now this atherosclerosis process actually starts at 6 months of age. It goes on throughout life. There is no clear-cut evidence even that, triple vessel disease blockage necessarily leads to death. This itself is a big controversy. A lot of people who have died of unrelated causes during postmortem, they were found that they had triple vessel blockage. But they never had any heart attack. So, how much it helps doesn't help, because in any case, after the blockages are removed through CABG, you are still given drugs, you are still asked for lifestyle change. If you are a hypertensive, you are on antihypertensive, you have to be on restricted diet, you are on sorbitrate. So what really has helped, whether it's this or that, it's a very debatable subject. But that there is some controversy, we will not go into that. But the question part about treadmill, it's not treadmill, exercise is not opening the blood vessels. It's not that by doing exercises there is some special hormone which will clear the blood vessels. The logic here is that how can we do a bypass? Because there is a blockage. Now I am not talking right now medicines. There are medicines which dissolve the bypass, which dissolve the clot and other things. And I am not talking of diet, so that we don't mount up the cholesterol aspect, but just the treadmill part. Now it has been known, it was always known. Actually, when I graduated, I remember one of the first articles I read as a medical graduate was about this, that the recommended thing was that 6 months, if you do this regular walk, which I said 5 days a week, the heart tends to create a bypass because it's a living tissue. You see what happens with most of us, we deal with the body as a dead tissue. It sounds shocking, as shocking as saying that Krishna is dead. We already deal with our body as if it is dead, meaning thereby all the time something has to be done from outside and the body is doing nothing. And we make it more and more dead. By dead I mean inert, tamasic, unable to react, by immediate pumping of medicines into the system. Little fever antibiotics, heavy dosage. I have seen here people give very, very high dosage. They blast the system. And it's not healthy. I can tell you, that means the body is constantly stunned by external agencies, like a father who keeps giving lots and lots of money to a child. Eventually the child is just not able to do anything because he has everything provided. A parrot in the cage, unable to fly. So over a period of time, the heart is just simply, or any body tissue is unable to bring out their own innate healing processes. Now with the heart, if there is a blockage, very naturally blood tends to find an alternate passage. And if there is not one, it will create one. See, that is the beauty. New blood vessels grow. It's known, anastomosis. They grow in the brain, they grow in the heart, everywhere. But there is a process to it. They won't grow suddenly. So treadmill is stressing the heart. They will not open up like that. But if one walks every day, of course, again, the same principle will apply within the limits. Taking mother's name, invoking, that's the wonderful thing. So slowly these vessels will grow. One can even add an imagery that things are cleansing and the vessels are growing. The power of the mind to be brought in, of course the divine, but also the mind, which is an intermediary substratum. So then these blood vessels will grow and it will form a wonderful anastomosis. So that is the principle. Now it's not that everybody who does treadmill will have a problem. May not. If one has a healthy heart, it's like, there are people who do a lot of weights, perfectly fine. But we must know that we are basically stressing the heart and we do not know at what point of blockage the heart is. So if one was walking, there is a fair amount of chance that one will get some kind of a warning angina, so one will stop. But if one is on a treadmill, there is every possibility that there may be a massive heart attack instantly. That's the big difference. That is the logic behind it. Because, at that point of time, heart is pumping fast. The very fact one is doing that kind of an exercise, heart is pumping fast. So it is stressed out. Cut off of the blood supply critically can lead to a sudden cascading effect. And what would have been in normal walking, the blockage leading to angina, where a person sat down, next day consulted doctor, said, I experienced this pain, may be a sudden precipitating event leading to sudden deaths. So arrhythmias, because already the heart is on an overdrive. This is just to, about this treadmill part. I am not saying one should not do or one should do. It's one's own choice. But we must know what is happening.
So does the walking
best exercise.
cleanse triglycerides, lipids?
For triglyceride, lipids, best is high fiber diet. And of course cutting down on all that increases it. But most importantly, and that's where I come to this part of living from within outwards. We are just talking of one activity, food. So mother says 90% of the time with regard to food, it is the thought which is important. I have seen it's so true. Lot of people come and tell me, I have seen the triglycerides shooting up and they come and keep telling me, no, I don't eat and I know for sure they are not doing anything amiss. It is amazing. So we live, as I spoke about the outer net of forces. Now this net is a very interesting net. All the time there are new things added to the net. Not just like the internet. It's an unfiltered, and all of us are party to it because we are so unconscious. Doctors very unwittingly, unconsciously, without anything has been substantially brought up, immediately new discovery, and people take a lot of pride. They have discovered this now. Like some time back, people started talking about ghee is good. Some people know it is bad. Some people would say, all milk products are to be banned. It doesn't work like that. So our minds are entering into a greater and greater confusion, the surface consciousness. In the bargain, what is happening? Now look what is happening with the body. Body has its own instincts. Anyways, we finish it as a child grows up. Now there is a whole structure in the mind which has developed, which has replaced the instincts completely. And that structure is acting upon the body. It is a structure of ignorance. This is what we don't realize, that this is not knowledge. It's simply data and analysis of data which is being confused with knowledge. And what is worse is not about here, because many of us are very conscious and we invoke the mother. Many persons who don't know, they don't realize that along with that there is fear which every day is being fed. Oh, if I eat it, what's going to happen? My lipids will shoot up. People die so much out of fear. That's why in spite of all these precautions, you see what's happening. Hospitals are full. Everything. It's not that, mortality rate has come down. Okay, you find another way to take care of that disease. You quickly do a bypass. But that's not, really the conscious aspect of it. So she said, do things to become more and more conscious. Infuse consciousness into the cells. Simple thing like every day just to invoke her peace, not only within, But by the help of thought, she says thought is a vehicle. Actually, we don't realize, it's like a motor car. What it carries is consciousness, that content of consciousness, some interesting vehicle given to man. So through thought and imagery we can connect something which is imperceptible to us, immaterial to us, and bring it into contact with the cells. She has said this, that if you have pain, if you have a problem somewhere, you call peace and put it into that organ. Pranayama. There is so many books being written, taught. Mother has given wonderful pranayama, which she has herself practiced. Anyone is aware of that? Read it?
It's a discussion with
Satprem, that's right. And you see, we go so many places to learn pranayama. Mother has given a pranayama which she has practiced. And she clarifies everything there. Simple pranayama. Even the whole, she used to do 12, 12, 12, 12. And then the disciple asked, but isn't it dangerous? He said, oh my child, they say all kinds of things. And then that prana that she will draw. Now, there is a pranayama where we think only breath. But it's not just about the physical breath. Prana, why they call it prana? Just as thought is a vehicle of consciousness. Physical breath is a vehicle of prana. So when we draw the breath, draw consciously, we can consciously connect to all the energy that is in the universe and draw it. And actually people get rejuvenated. One of the simple exercises which I suggest to people, and many people do it spontaneously. When they are tired, what do people do? They are feeling slumpy and then they get up, and what do? They just stretch themselves out like this. Take a deep breath. It helps. Why does it help? Thought about it. You actually end up drawing a whole lot of prana from all around. And that's sometimes enough to simply awaken, put you back. How does it work? Now we can do the same thing very consciously. We are feeling very tired. All of us go through. Sometimes we have, late night sessions, and our Mr. Modi, he has an interesting way to do it. Yeah. 3-4 hours a day. It's amazing, So we can just draw prana. With that, bring that whole consciousness that it's not just breath, but I am drawing all that is around. This is one way. Of course, Mother says that this is not the best way. You can, draw from the source. So many things we can do. Then another simple way, this Pranabdha, who did so much, work on physical education, and we know his special role in the yoga. And Mother said, physical transformation, he is indispensable for the physical transformation. He taught another kind of pranayama to some people. And of course, it can be done by anyone. He says, while you are walking, you do pranayama while walking. Simple. Breathe in, breathe out. And while breathing, you take Mother's name. Just try it. Everyday pranayama. You don't have to spend extra time doing it. Maybe next time we can try it. When we take some kind of a conscious walk, we need not speak, but we just practice this pranayama and come back and say how we have felt. It'll be very good. But of course, no talk. That's more for my defense because I can't do it here. Naturally, we keep speaking. But we can do it. We can try it and practice it. In ashram, it is of course very nice because on the seashore you can walk, and except for hi and hello, you don't have to indulge. Similarly, when she was asked about asanas, she was asked, whether these are exercises or they yoga. She said, no, it is not a particular set of exercises which makes them yogic. Any exercise done in the yogic, with the yogic attitude becomes yogic. Climbing the stairs, walking on the road. It's we who have limited it to only a set of exercises. We can do it all the time. So, then we can dispense away. Look how they were bringing out the essential truth of things. That instead of, sticking out, very often people say, yeah, we want to do asanas, but we don't have time. Real Hatha Yoga people do for hours. There is a Hatha Yogi in Bangalore who does for 8 hours. This is not Hatha Yoga. This is just a eyewash, make-believe Hatha Yoga that, we are doing it. To that extent it helps because we believe we are doing something. But real Hatha Yoga, there are people in Bangalore who do it for hours, 8 hours. Because that's how it is to be done. That's why Hatha Yoga fell out of repute, because it was not possible to realize the divine by who will take out that kind of time. It has its place even now, yoga part of it, but not asanas only. But when we do actions consciously, then slowly the physical consciousness begins to awaken. It's not an easy task because we have totally massacred it. It's a civilizational disease actually. On one side we are so-called conscious of the body, it's like in thing. People are very conscious of their bodies, but actually people are very unconscious of their bodies to say very frank. I mean, I can speak for myself. I've been extremely unconscious. Even the movements, everything. How the hands are moving, how the feet are moving, where they are going. And then I realized, really there is so much work to be done only on this plane. Walking consciously, gestures consciously, even mudras, they spontaneously develop. All these things is possible if we do the same thing with a different kind of a in-look. And that different in-look is when we do exercises to infuse consciousness. That is the aspiration. We offer it to them. We are not because of fear. Oh, if I don't do, what may happen? If it happens, happens. One day something will happen. I always give this example, people are so scared of dying. At 39, Vivekananda left his body, but leaving a stamp for centuries to come. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa in his 50s. Janina in her 50s, and mother has spoken so highly about her that she brought in touch the new form. It was one of the problems on which mother was pondering, and thanks to Janina's drawings, she said it was the indication. Look at what a wonderful work she did, and only 9 years actually active yoga she pursued. So, as she said, life is not measured by the number of years we live. So this whole attitude and approach needs to change, which puts us in the best possible condition. Again, illness, since we are at it. We do a lot of things again out of fear, clinging to life. And what does she say? The supreme science, this is a prayer in prayers and meditation, where she says, but the supreme science, O Lord, is to leave ourselves entirely in thy hands, without caring for life or for death. So somebody asked her mother, this is too big a statement. She says, yes, because that puts you in the best possible conditions. If you live, it has put you in the best possible conditions to help you live. But if for some reason you have to depart, you are in the best possible conditions to depart. Our Lord himself, he left his body physically, if we see, at 78. There are plenty of people, live past 80, 90. So what? Of course, the reasons for his leaving the body are very different. We are not going into that part. But the point is this fear, which is the worst impurity in the cells. That two things, Mother spoke about the 4 asuras, whose worldwide net has caught human beings in its grip. And what are these 4? One of them is unconsciousness. Second is, of course, falsehood. She says disease is falsehood of the body. To think about disease, to talk about disease, to become disease-centric is to actually perpetuate that falsehood. It's like that formation. It's not the way to really approach this. And then the third, of course, is suffering. That asura, what he does by creating outer suffering, draws our consciousness outward. We are not able to go within. A little pain, a little difficulty, and we are caught in its trap. Whereas we have to learn to disengage regardless of the suffering and regardless of the pain. And it's a practice, of course. Without that, it's not possible. And of course, fourth is death. That, of course, is at many levels it operates. So to come out of the grip of that, first these three we can still tackle. Falsehood of the body, falsehood of the body, all the instincts are gone, and it takes so much time. At least, I don't know, for me it's such a difficult process even now. I have to figure out, the body must feel whether I can take this food or not. Not because of fear or anything, but spontaneously. And if it says no, I should say no. Despite the very tempting ice cream. Everything has been corrupted. The natural instinct of the body. And to bring that consciousness, very, very long process. But nevertheless, that is the way. Again there, very often people have this question, what if one doesn't succeed? Well, it is not for success. That's the interesting part. It is for infusing consciousness into matter. Even if 100 persons don't succeed, it will make it easier for the 100 first. Yesterday, Dina was referring to this aspect when she spoke about the butterfly effect and the chaos theory. She didn't use the words, but she was basically referring to that, about the interconnectedness. She used the word interconnectedness. It's so true. This is our gift to posterity. That when we have done something and we may not reap the fruits, that's why Gita's first dictum, not to live for the results, is so wonderful. And very often, at least I have this example before my eyes. Some people till the soil, others sow the seed, third, water it, fourth, protect the plant, fifth, watch it grow and bloom, but they die before they can eat the fruit, and sixth, eat the fruit. So we may not taste the fruit, and we will taste, not in this body, just that we come sixth generation and we'll be happy that somebody has done this work. So this is also part of the work, that we live consciously and we try to infuse consciousness into the physical matter. Because the body is so unconscious, we may never reap the benefits. We may just walk out, exit, and people may say, look, this is what he was doing, this is the result. We don't have to worry about that. But thanks to that work, somebody will reap the benefits, maybe 300, 400 years down the line, or maybe much earlier if more and more join. So this is one aspect, I'm talking of food and physical consciousness. When we try, not succeed, no problem. Sleep, again the same thing, unconscious sleep. It doesn't rejuvenate, it gets so heavy. At least I try a simple remedy and I can share that. Otherwise there are so many ways, stretching out and all that, but frankly, after a whole day's work and watching these two, Mahadev and Mahabharat, you don't feel like doing all that. You're tired enough to do it. Though there are so many things, Bal Mudra, which is very nice, the way a child sleeps with this hand, all that I have read. But frankly, to try all that, little bit stretching fine. But beyond it, when you are tired, it's difficult. But this is a very simple way. So, there is the pillow, and now it's become like a second way that when I put my head on the pillow, I'm in mother's lap. So, no problem. What happens morning, whether I wake up or I don't wake up, I don't care because it's in mother's lap. It's a simple way to sleep. Of course, we can add an aspiration, Mother, make me fresh, light for your service, not for anything else, so that I have the strength to do your service, to love you better, to serve you better. So this is all this process from morning to so many mundane. I think yesterday Chirag had asked this question and he's not here, but I'm sure at some point he'll probably receive the recording. That difference between mundane and spiritual existence. In the higher truth, there is no such thing. In the divine consciousness, everything is divine. In the least atom of existence, I think yesterday or day before, 1994 music we were hearing, which ended with the door is open, you have only to step in, and there were, this, in each atom of existence, there is this delight of existence. But we are not aware of that. Even there is a delight of the body. I don't know, what it is. But Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. And this is not exercise and feel good. That is different. All of us experience it. But there is like a delight that the body cells can experience. So there is so much. Same with speech. We talk about psychic discovery. And we instantly think of what is the process. How do I meditate? How do I sit? But what happens when we sit and meditate in real time? That's why the other day I was mentioning yoga is in real time. It's not a theoretical thing. It's not a bookish knowledge. So what happens in real time? People sit for meditation, and if they keep their eyes open, they are flooded by the sensation. If they keep their eyes closed, they are flooded by worse things. All the demons and jinns which are tied inside, they are set free. Thoughts jostling, feelings going around. So what does one do with these things? They trouble, they disturb. How to get past that? So that is why Mother says that everything that you do, before you eat, before you speak, not only offer it, have a little aspiration, connect the food to the aspiration that may it nourish my being, my body. Also, when I speak, may this speech not become a cause of division, disharmony, disorder, untruth, but become a source of light, hope, joy, harmony, order. In fact, he says, before everything that you do, it should be like a brooding consciousness which is behind. And time to time to keep referring to that. And then over a period of time, this becomes a natural state. It's not something to be done separately. One does separately only to intensify what is going on anyways naturally. So then yoga and life, they just become interwoven into each other in the very texture. Actually, I thought I'll keep it as a question and answer session, but I see that, it's just flowing. I would rather like to pause, have some question answers, then probably we can take a little break, have a cup of tea, then come back and have home choir. Because, then it will be a very different atmosphere. So, it's almost 10:30, 10:45. So, can we have some questions on this? It's a very vast subject. Yes, Kayan.
Okay. Real quick on the health and food subject, I do seem to experience some pretty intense food intolerances, and I'm wondering what, your opinion on this, a yogic point of view. Are these things, embedded in the...
Yeah, what experience you refer to?
Food intolerances.
Food intolerances. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, of course.
Symptoms when you take something.
Of course.
Just overcome this.
Yes. Of course. That's how allergies work. They start as allergies because there is a disharmony between the body and the substances we are taking. Then it is labeled as allergy, and then the mind becomes very strongly active. Then there is fear. So it complicates the whole thing. But not only I believe, I have seen it, actually I have done it with some people, and you can, if you really want to see how, to what extent the body can go. You have to really cleanse every fear from the system. Start with a little bit, very little, with prayer, offering, and put all the force of your will that nothing will happen, nothing is going to happen. If you persist, after a while, the body will begin to respond. Even you can give a very contrary suggestion. See what happens with all these responses which become inbuilt. I think the other day somebody asked about chronic pain. Chronic pains are supported by subconscious formations. And they're difficult to break. So one of the ways that is recommended is that when you are about to sleep, that's a time to give suggestions. Give suggestions to the body. I'll be fine, there is no allergy. It's healthy, it's normal. And to tell your body not to react like that. This is if you really want to get rid of it. But
take the food or just say this to yourself?
You start by saying this, then take a little bit. Do this over a period of time, your body will begin to accept, go to the next level. See what happens, people have a food allergy, so they take either or. Either they don't take at all, or they take a big morsel and they have an allergy. But here you are trying to break a habit. It's true of all allergies actually. Even people who have asthma, this is how they get rid of it. But for most people, as I said, it's a easier course because why bother? Like, if you have a gluten allergy and if it's fine, avoiding certain foods, so they don't go into it. But this is just to talking about how the body can operate. So you have to go step by step with the body. Like again with rheumatoid arthritis or any other arthritis. Now the moment one walks, one has pain, so people don't walk. And then the pain increases because now it goes more and more into inertia mode. So if you have to break that, you have to go step by step. And Mother gives this very beautifully that how to, in a different context, she says how to increase your will. She says go step by step and persevere. You can lift this much. 10 days you are lifting that much, do it, but 11th day try to do 1 inch more. So that is the way. Now the advantage of this process is, to start with, it will augment your will. It will awaken the strength to push yourself. And that is something very beautiful. So even when sometimes one doesn't succeed, I'm not saying it won't. I have seen it work in amazing ways. But sometimes, there are no panaceas at this level. I mean, otherwise Sri Aurobindo would not spend a whole tapasya doing transformation. So I keep telling there are no panaceas, no absolute rules which apply to everyone. But the advantage of trying to master any aspect of oneself, however small, like gluten allergy, is actually being on the road to supermanhood. Very interesting. And Mother has said that all who are engaged in some kind of a self-mastery are apprentice supermen. These are her words. Why? Because, I'm reminded of this little story that somebody was walking up the... Story means somebody has written this story. It may not have happened. But such things happen, similar things. So, somebody was going up the hill and, suddenly saw a huge boulder sitting in front and doesn't know what to do. So, he tries to push it. Then he's wondering how to go beyond, go past it. And he hears this voice of God. Push! He tries to push. Nothing happens. Pushes. Tired. Maybe it was not God's voice. Shall I go back? Again he hears the voice, more commanding. I said push harder. Okay, maybe. So, he's again does it. This goes on for some time. Then suddenly, after a couple of days, the voice tells him, there is another way. Look that way. So he finds there is another way and goes past. So he questions, like, there was always another way. It's not that you created another way. Why did you make me do this meaningless exercise? So the voice tells him, now look at your muscles. You are going to take this climb. You are not yet ready and fit. You had to do this. Not so that you can... I never said that you will remove the boulder. I said push and push harder. It has developed you at a level which is going to be helpful later on. So in life, many things we do which don't help get the immediate result. True. Yet they help our being to grow. So at least that's an approach, that's how I have understood and try to do things. That even if It may not help you in that immediate results. But by that action, it has helped you in another dimension and sometimes even prepared for that same thing for a future date. You know, in Savitri there are these lines. Fate is truth working out in ignorance. This is one part. And then he says, fate is a transaction between your soul and nature with God as its foreseeing arbiter. You know, it gives the secret. What is God seeing? A transaction between soul and nature. Even if the unseen maintains the decree, man can accept, he can refuse his fate. Now this is the other secret. Man can accept, he can refuse his fate. Now people ask, oh, is it so simple? But I have not seen. It doesn't work out. So he says, even if the unseen maintains his decree, he writes thy refusal in his credit page. For doom is not a close, a mystic seal, arisen from the tragic crash of life, arisen from death and stumble and fall. The spirit rises mightier with each defeat. Its godlike wings grow wide with every fall. So even if it doesn't work out, but still our will has grown. So I personally feel if we can push anything in any aspect of life, this now I am generalizing it, I would like to strive and push for nothing else to simply make my will stronger. And this is what I have learned. People often say Indian thought is so fatalistic. It's just the opposite. I mean, Savitri is a living example. She doesn't accept death also. Forget about disease. She may have succeeded, she may not have succeeded. But nevertheless, to imagine that somebody strove to fight against death is itself something amazing.
Archaka, in his book,
Yes.
writes, I have conquered death. Not death itself, but the idea of death.
Yes. Check in his book. Wonderful.
Yeah. Sometimes when you push the people, it gets on their nerves.
So we have a tea break. So we'll have tea, come back, then have the encore.